Please don't let him find me.
Mara stood in the dim hallway with her newborn crying behind her, the thin walls shaking with every small wail. She hadn't slept in 2 days, maybe 3. Her hands trembled as she reached for the bottle on the table, but before she could lift it, a fist slammed against the front door. The sound cracked through the house like a warning shot. She froze. The newborn wailed louder. Mara whispered, telling him to wait, telling herself to breathe, then stepped toward the door. Another hit landed, softer this time, followed by a shaking voice. Please, don't let him find me. Mara felt her stomach tighten. She placed her hand on the latch but didn't open it yet. Who's after you? She asked through the wood. A man with a badge, the boy said. Sheriff? No, worse. That made her chest twist. She opened the door an inch and saw a small boy, barefoot, dust caked on his legs, clutching a torn jacket like it was the last piece of home he had left. His eyes were wide, dark with fear. He swayed once, then steadied himself. You hurt? Mara asked. Hungry, he whispered. Nothing else. She hesitated. Every part of her told her to send him away, to keep her own child safe, to shut the door and pretend she never heard the knocking. But the boy's voice cracked again. Please. He took a step forward, and she finally opened the door enough to let him slip inside. He collapsed the moment his feet crossed the threshold. Mara grabbed his shoulders and steadied him onto a chair. Wait here, she said. She grabbed a piece of bread from the counter, half stale but still soft at the center, and handed it to him. The boy devoured it like he hadn't eaten in days. Crumbs scattered across his lap. His hands shook with every bite, and he didn't speak until he finished the last corner. Thank you, he said softly. Mara studied his face. Where's your family? She asked. He flinched. Don't ask. She noticed a gash on his arm, hidden beneath the torn jacket. You're bleeding. Not my blood. Her breath caught at that. She didn't ask more. Instead, she dampened a cloth and cleaned the wound. The boy didn't fight her touch, but he didn't look at her either. He stared at the floor, at the shadows moving under the furniture each time the lantern flickered. What's your name? Mara asked. The boy hesitated. Asher. The newborn's cry rose again, sharper this time. Asher flinched at the sound but didn't move. Mara adjusted the baby in her arms, trying to calm him. Asher watched, something softening in his expression. Can I hold him? He asked quietly. Mara almost said no. But something in his eyes made her pause. She lowered the baby into his small arms. Asher held the newborn with surprising care, rocking gently, whispering something under his breath. Then his face went pale. Don't let him take the baby too, he whispered. Mara's heart lurched. What do you mean? Asher didn't answer. His eyes drifted toward the door as if he was listening for footsteps in the night. Mara looked too, her breath caught in her throat, realizing whatever had chased this boy to her home might already be close. And far beyond the rise, a lone rider paused beneath the paling sky, watching the cabin with a stillness that suggested he had been waiting for this moment far longer than anyone inside could ever imagine now. The storm had thinned to a restless drizzle by the time Ella Carson stepped out onto the porch, lantern trembling in her hand. The boy stood exactly where she had left him, so still he might have been carved from the same dry timber as the posts supporting her roof. Wind teased his hair, lifting dust from the edges of his boots, revealing how long he'd been wandering before courage finally dragged him to her door. She drew a slow breath and held the lantern higher, watching shadows shift across his face. If you're hungry, I've got stew inside, she said softly. Ain't much, but it's warm. The boy hesitated, glancing toward the field, where the outline of the old windmill rose like a skeletal witness against the dying sky. He told me not to go inside nobody's house, the boy murmured. Who told you that? Ella asked. Silence. The kind that stretched too thin. Ella set the lantern down and crouched to meet his eyes. Son, you're safe here. He studied her a long moment. Then his jaw tightened with a kind of small, stubborn bravery. "I'm not your son," he whispered. The words stung more than they should have. She nodded, steady. "All right. Come in anyway." She stepped aside. After a hard swallow, the boy crossed the threshold. Inside, the house smelled of sage, iron pots, and the faint remains of her late husband's tobacco scents she hadn't yet managed to scrub out, no matter how many times she washed the walls. The boy's gaze flicked over everything: the simple table, the cracked window glass, the rifle rack above the mantel. When his eyes caught the folded flag resting there, he turned away quickly, as if understanding loss too well for someone so young. Ella ladled stew into a bowl. "Tell me your name." He didn't answer. Just stared at the steam rising off the bowl. She set it in front of him. "Eat first. Talk after." He did. Slowly at first, then with the starving desperation of someone who'd been living off fear and scraps for too long. When he finally spoke, his voice was roughened by both hunger and something darker. "My name's Reed." "Reed what?" "Just Reed." Ella didn't push. Every piece of him seemed held together by threads ready to snap. "Reed," she said gently, "why were you out here alone?" He froze. Spoon hovering mid-air. Eyes darting to the door like he expected someone to crash through it. Then, barely audible, "Because they're coming." Her skin prickled. "Who?" He shook his head violently. "Don't ask. Please don't ask." A gust of wind slammed against the window, making the lantern flicker. Reed flinched so hard the spoon clattered from his hand. Ella's protective instincts surged. She moved around the table and placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. "No one's coming after you tonight," she said firmly. "Not while you're here." Reed swallowed. "You don't understand. They don't stop." "Who doesn't stop?" He squeezed his eyes shut. "The men in the black coats." The room seemed to tighten around them. Ella felt her breath catch. Black coats meant one thing in this part of the territory: men who weren't supposed to exist anymore. "Reed," she whispered, "what did they want?" He opened his eyes, wide and frightened. "They want me." Ella felt the ground shift beneath her feet. And then Reed said the words that turned her blood cold: "They killed my mother. Now they're coming for anyone who helps me." Outside, thunder rolled again, low, distant, and far too much like an answer. Ella kept the lantern burning long after the stew cooled, its glow trembling against the walls like a heartbeat too afraid to rest. Reed sat by the hearth, small hands curled around the chipped mug she had given him. He didn't drink much. Didn't speak. Just listened to the wind outside gnawing at the house like a beast testing weak boards. Ella watched him, trying to read the story buried behind those wary eyes. Grief, yes. Terror, certainly. But something else too, something coiled tight as barbed wire. "Reed," she said softly, wiping her hands on her apron, "who hurt you?" He flinched at the sound of his own name. "No one," he whispered. "Someone did," she replied. Silence stretched, thin and sharp, until her newborn's soft cry carried from the bedroom. She moved to check him, but Reed rose first, almost instinctively, as if pulled by some old instinct of duty. Ella hesitated, then let him go. He stepped into the dim room, looked down at the baby, and murmured something she couldn't hear. The crying eased. Ella watched from the doorway, stunned by how gently he held the swaddled infant, how steady his thin arms were despite the day's chaos. "You're good with him," she said. Reed didn't look up. "He's warm." The simplicity of it cracked something inside her. Warmth was a luxury for a child like him. "Reed," she said again, "you can stay here tonight. No one will turn you out." He shook his head. "People always do. Not me." His shoulders tensed, doubt and longing wrestling under his skin. Before she could say more, a sudden thud hit the side of the house. The lantern flickered. Reed froze, eyes wide. "Don't open the door," he whispered. Ella's pulse quickened. "Why? Who's out there?" Not who. His voice trembled so slightly she barely noticed. Another thud. A scraping, like something with weight dragging itself along the boards. Ella stepped back, shielding the doorway to the baby's room. "Reed," she said carefully, "tell me what's following you." He shook his head again, but this time not out of refusal, out of fear that speaking would make it real. "I didn't take food," he blurted out. "I earned it. I chopped wood. I cleaned. I did what they asked." Ella swallowed. "Who?" "The men by the creek." Her stomach dropped. She knew the place. The sheriff let them camp there, long as they kept quiet. Men who drifted through with the storms. Men who answered to no one. "They said if I worked, they'd feed me," Reed said. "But when I asked for more, when I said I was hungry, they said I owed them. They grabbed me. I ran before they could." His voice cracked. He pressed a hand to his mouth. Ella's breath shook with rage. "They followed you here?" He nodded. "They don't like when someone runs." A third thud struck the wall, harder than the others. Ella reached for the shotgun above the mantel. She had never fired it at anything living. Tonight felt different. She cocked it. Reed stared at her. "You don't have to protect me." "Yes," she said, "I do." Another scrape along the siding. Then a voice outside called, low and mocking, "Housekeeper, you got something that belongs to us?" Ella pulled Reed behind her. "No," she said, loud enough for the door to hear, "I've got someone who's safe." Outside, the wind carried a low moan, and Reed whispered, "It's coming back tonight, for us both." Ella kept the shotgun raised as the scraping outside shifted into slow circling footsteps. Reed clung to her sleeve, trembling as if the floorboards themselves warned him to stay silent. The lantern shook on its hook, throwing long wounded shadows across the cramped room. Outside, a man chuckled, the sound rolling like gravel dragged across cold metal. Ella tightened her grip and stepped closer to the door, breath sharp and deliberate. "If you want the boy," she called, "you come through me first." The laughter outside stopped, replaced by a strange scraping like teeth dragged along wood. Reed buried his face in her back, whispering a prayer that sounded older than he was. "It's not just them," he whispered. "Something followed the men when they found me." Ella felt the air shift, colder, heavier, as if the house braced itself. A fist slammed the door, rattling hinges older than her father's memory. "Open up," a man barked. "The boy owes his debt." Ella steadied her breath, planting her feet the way her mother taught during storms. "He owes you nothing," she snapped, "and he's under my roof now." For a moment the night went unnervingly silent, as though listening for her fear. Then another voice rose, lower, colder, echoing like someone speaking from inside a deep well. "Reed," it moaned. "You ran. But everything hungry finds its way back." Reed collapsed to his knees, hands over his ears, shaking so violently Ella dropped beside him. "Don't listen," she said, pulling him close. "It can't take you from here." But Reed shook his head, tears streaking through the dirt on his cheeks. "It knows my name," he whispered. "The men said it watches hunger." Ella pulled him up and backed them toward the bedroom where the newborn slept. The wind rose suddenly, slamming against the windows like something clawed at the glass. A shadow moved outside, too tall to be any man she knew, drifting past the lantern glow. The men cursed, stumbling back, shouting that they wanted the boy, not the monster. The shadow returned to the door, pressing against it until the wood bowed inward. Ella raised the shotgun again, muscles shaking, unsure if lead could stop something like that. "Reed," she murmured, "what does it want from you?" He gripped her arm, voice breaking as the shadow leaned closer to the thin, trembling door. "It wants my hunger," he whispered. "It feeds on boys who starve quietly." Ella felt something ancient coil in her chest, a fury that burned hotter than fear itself. She stepped toward the door, lifting the gun higher, refusing to let the night choose her fate. Outside, the men shouted again, begging the shadow to leave them and take the boy instead. The shadow answered with a long scraping groan that made the lantern sputter in protest. Reed hid behind her, clutching the blanket from the newborn's crib like it carried some protection. Ella turned to him, brushing his cheek, promising without words that he would not be taken tonight. The door jolted violently, splinters falling as the shadow pressed harder, seeking a way inside. Outside, the men fled into the dark, leaving the house alone with the thing hunting the boy. Ella tightened her stance, breath steadying as she realized the creature feared something she still held. She lifted the lantern high, letting its trembling light spill across the door where the shadow waited. The creature hissed, recoiling as if the flickering flame carried a memory it despised. Ella stepped closer, refusing to break. Reed held her hand. The door bowed again, hard enough to rattle dust from the rafters. Ella pulled Reed behind her, lantern lifted like a fragile shield. The newborn cried from the back room, small and terrified. Reed turned toward the cry, toward the only thing he still cared about. "Stay behind me," Ella whispered. The shadow pressed against the door, swelling and thinning like it breathed through the wood. Its voice seeped in, cold and dragged out, like syllables drowning in mud. "Reed, you tasted fear young. I kept your hunger warm." Reed shook, gripping Ella's apron. "I didn't ask for it," he whispered. "I didn't ask for any of it." A crack snaked across the doorframe, thin at first, then widening with a sound like bones twisting. Ella cocked the shotgun again, sweat dripping down her temple. "You want the boy," she growled. "You step in here and face a mother." The shadow stilled. Then it spoke again, lower, almost amused. "You are no mother to him." Ella's throat tightened. "I am tonight." The door exploded inward, showering the floor with splinters. Ella fired. The shotgun blast filled the room, echoing off the walls like thunder trapped inside a box. Smoke. Silence. Then a scream that did not belong to any creature born on this earth. The shadow recoiled, its shape unraveling where the pellets struck. Not dying, just wounded, leaking darkness like smoke poured underwater. Reed screamed and covered his ears. Ella grabbed him, pulling him toward the bedroom where the baby wailed. The shadow followed, slow, dragging itself across the floor with a wet scraping sound. Ella slammed the bedroom door and shoved a dresser against it. It trembled with every strike from the creature outside. Reed crawled to the crib, picking up the newborn, holding him tightly, not like he feared losing the baby, but like the baby kept him alive. Ella knelt beside him. "Reed. Look at me." He didn't. He just rocked the child, whispering the same phrase again and again. "I won't leave you. I won't leave you." The doorframe creaked, wood bending inward, nails squealing as they ripped loose. Ella gripped his shoulders. "Reed. Tell me what it wants." "It wants to take what's empty," he said, voice shaking. "It follows hunger. It followed me when the men left me without food for days. It whispered. It stayed. It fed off my crying." Ella swallowed the ache rising in her chest. "You're not empty anymore." "You don't know that," he whispered. The dresser slid an inch as the shadow pushed harder. Ella glanced around, no gun, no escape, nothing but the lantern beside the crib. She grabbed it. "No," Reed gasped. "It hates fire." "Good," she said. "Let it hate me." The dresser jumped as something slammed it from the other side. Ella lit the wick higher until the flame roared inside the thin glass. Reed clutched the baby tighter, tears streaking his face. "Ella," he whispered, "please don't let it take me." "I won't," she said, touching his cheek. "I swear on everything I've ever lost." The dresser split. A tendril of shadow slipped through the gap, curling along the floor like a living crack in the world. Ella yanked the lantern up and hurled it. Glass shattered. Flame spilled across the shadow. The creature shrieked a broken, furious howl that rattled the crib. The fire didn't kill it. But it forced the shadow back, retreating through the hole in the door, dragging its wounded mass across the ruined floor. Silence followed. Then Reed whispered, "It'll come back, once the fire dies." Ella took his hand, steady and sure. "Then we'll be ready." Smoke hung in the air long after the creature slid back into the dark. The house felt split open, cracked, wounded, listening. Ella moved slowly, checking the hallway, making sure the fire hadn't caught the walls. Only scattered embers glowed on the floorboards, dying like little stars. Reed sat on the bedroom rug with the newborn tucked against his chest, rocking him instinctively. The boy's breath shook in short, brittle bursts, like he hadn't learned how to breathe calmly in years. Ella knelt beside him. "Reed," she said quietly. "Let me see the baby." He hesitated. Just a flicker. Then he passed the child over, his hands trembling as if he feared he'd break without the weight of someone to hold. Ella checked the newborn, tight fists, warm cheeks, eyes squeezed shut from all the noise. He was safe. Terrified, but safe. Reed wiped his face with the corner of his sleeve. "Did it leave?" he whispered. "For now." He looked at the broken door, at the scorch marks, at the black streak smeared across the floor where the creature had recoiled. "It doesn't stop," he whispered. "It just waits." Ella laid the newborn in his crib and turned back to him. "You're not facing it alone." Reed flinched. "People say that before they walk away. Do I look like someone who walks away?" A long silence stretched between them, quiet, heavy, almost tender. Reed studied her face, searching for the lie he expected to find. He didn't. Ella sat beside him, back against the wall, both of them staring at the ruined door. "What did that thing do to you?" she asked. Reed's voice went small. "It didn't do anything. It just stayed when no one else did." Ella felt that line settle under her ribs. Reed pulled his knees up to his chest. "I know how that sounds." "I don't care how it sounds," Ella said. "I care what it wants. It wants to keep me. It wants to finish what it started." Ella didn't push him. Not yet. The boy had been pushed enough. A faint wind moved through the hallway, too soft to hear but strong enough to drift a small pile of ash across the boards. Reed watched the ash creep toward the bedroom door. "It follows me," he whispered. "Even when I'm quiet. Even when I don't think about it." "So don't think about it," Ella murmured. "Think about staying alive. Think about him." She nodded toward the crib. Reed's eyes softened only a little, but enough for Ella to see something shift inside him. A step forward. A fracture healing. A boy choosing life, if only for a moment. Outside, branches scraped the siding with long, slow drags, like fingers tracing the house. Reed winced. "It's not gone," he said. "No," Ella agreed. "But it's hurt. That buys us time." "For what?" "To figure out how to kill it." Reed swallowed hard. "You can't kill what it is," he said. "It's not a man. It's not even a thing. It's the hunger left over when someone survives something they shouldn't." Ella felt her breath catch. "And it attached to you." Reed nodded. A soft cry rose from the crib. Reed stood before Ella could, instinct pulling him forward. He lifted the baby with surprising gentleness. Ella watched him, something warm and aching stirring in her chest. "You're good with him," she said. Reed didn't look up. "He makes the noise stop," he whispered. "What noise?" "The one in my head. The one that calls my name." Ella stood and placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll keep you both quiet," she said. "We'll outlast this thing." Reed leaned into the touch, just the weight of her hand, and breathed out like he hadn't breathed in hours. But then the lantern on the dresser flickered. A cold draft crawled through the doorway. And somewhere outside, far off but coming closer, came a low, dragging moan. Reed froze. "It found us again," he whispered. Ella grabbed the shotgun. "Then we move," she said. "Now." Ella didn't bother with shoes. She slung the shotgun over her shoulder, grabbed the newborn's blanket, and jerked her head toward the kitchen. "Reed, stay close." He clutched the baby tighter and followed her through the dim hallway, his steps light but frantic. The house creaked around them, every board sounding like it might give them away. Outside, the moaning dragged across the yard, slow, patient, hunting. Ella pushed into the kitchen. The back door rattled once. Then again. Reed tensed. "It's right there." "I know," she whispered. "But the cellar hatch isn't." He blinked. "You wanna hide?" "No," Ella said. "I want 5 seconds to think." "The cellar gives us 5. She threw open the narrow pantry closet and shoved aside old jars and crates until the wooden hatch beneath them appeared. Reed looked down at it like it was a grave. "You sure? It's dirt and dark. You'll live." She lifted the hatch. Down. Reed lowered himself with shaking legs, keeping the newborn pressed to his chest so carefully it made Ella's throat tighten. She followed him down the crooked ladder and pulled the hatch shut above them. The cellar air was damp, cold, and thick with the smell of earth long undisturbed. Darkness swallowed them fully. Reed whispered, "I can't see." "Good. Neither can it." Ella found a match and sparked it. The tiny flame revealed dirt walls, old shelves, broken tools, and Reed's pale, terrified face. The newborn stirred but didn't cry. Reed shushed him with a soft murmur that wasn't even words, just instinct. Above them, the back door thudded open. Ella's breath stilled. Footsteps scraped the floorboards. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Reed's eyes widened. "It's inside." Ella pressed a hand over his shoulder, grounding him. "Quiet." The creature's steps dragged like something pulling a ruined leg. It moved through the kitchen, sniffing, searching. The match flame quivered, casting jagged shadows on the dirt walls. Ella whispered, "It followed your heat. Your breath. That's how it hunts." "I told you," Reed breathed. "It doesn't need eyes." The footsteps stopped directly above them. Reed's grip on the newborn tightened until Ella feared he might crush him. But the baby stayed silent, sensing something older than fear pressing down on them. The cellar's ceiling groaned. A low, croaking growl seeped through the floorboards. Dust drifted down in a thin veil. Reed's whisper cracked. "It knows." "Not if we stay still," Ella whispered. "Not if we let it think we ran." The creature shifted, heavy body dragging, sniffing along the pantry, claws tapping against the hatch they had just sealed. Reed squeezed his eyes shut. "Ella, please." She pressed her palm over his trembling hand. "I'm here." A long moment passed. Too long. Then the creature let out a sound that didn't belong in a human throat. A howl mixed with breath and anger and hunger. The boards above them rattled. Reed buried his face against the newborn's head, whispering for the baby to stay quiet, stay small, stay anything but found. Finally, the footsteps moved. They scraped across the kitchen. Then into the hallway. Toward the front door. Ella waited until the silence settled thick as soil. "We're leaving," she whispered. "Not hiding. Not waiting. Leaving." Reed looked up at her, eyes glossy and raw. "Where?" "Somewhere it can't follow. It always follows." Ella leaned in close, her voice steady, fierce. "Then we make it chase us on our terms." The newborn stirred again, tiny fingers brushing Reed's collarbone. "Okay," Reed whispered. "Okay." Ella climbed the ladder and cracked the hatch an inch. The house was quiet, too quiet, but the creature's moan floated faintly from beyond the porch. Farther this time. Moving away. She lowered the hatch again and turned to Reed. "When we go," she said, "we don't look back." Reed nodded, holding the baby like he was holding life itself. "Then let's go," he whispered. And above their heads, the creature moaned again, no longer searching, but calling. Ella pushed the hatch open just enough to listen. The house breathed a long, hollow silence, no dragging steps, no rasping moan, no claws on wood. Reed waited below, clutching the newborn as if the child were the last small anchor keeping him from floating into panic. Ella climbed out first. Hand him to me. Reed obeyed, rising from the cellar with stiff, frightened movements. He kept looking down the hallway, expecting the thing to come limping out of the shadows at any moment. Ella whispered, "We don't have much time. Grab a coat." Reed pulled an oversized jacket from the hook by the door, slipping his thin arms into it while Ella tucked the baby tight to her chest. The house felt wrong, emptier than before, like the thing had scraped something out of the air and taken it with him. Reed's voice trembled. "Which way?" "Through the fields," Ella said. "Grass is tall. It'll hide us. And slow us. Then run faster." She opened the back door. The yard stretched into darkness, the moon hidden behind clouds. The fields beyond looked like a black ocean of swaying stalks, whispering with every breath of wind. They stepped out, closing the ruined door behind them. Reed stayed close, hands clenched. "You think it knows we're moving?" "It always knows something," Ella said. "But it won't expect us to leave on foot." Reed gave a hollow laugh. "That's what it used to say about me." Ella glanced at him. "It?" He swallowed. My father." They walked faster. The grass reached their waists, then their shoulders. It brushed against Ella's arms like cold fingers. Reed kept glancing over his shoulder, every rustle making him flinch. "Ella," he whispered. "Yeah? What if it waits in the fields?" "It won't." "You sound sure." "I'm not." Reed exhaled shakily. "At least you're honest." Ella tightened her grip on the baby. "We just need to get far enough to reach the old Miller place. Big barn. Thick walls." Reed whispered, "But no doors." Ella didn't answer. That part was true and terrifying. A sudden snap tore through the field behind them. A stalk broken. Heavy. Deliberate. Reed froze, breath hitching. "It's here." "Keep moving," Ella said, gripping his sleeve. "Don't stop." Another snap. Closer. Reed's voice shrank to a terrified rasp. "It's hunting us." "No," Ella said, pulling him forward through the grass. "It's testing us." The grass around them swayed in an unnatural rhythm, like something large was brushing through it, circling, closing in. Reed's whisper shattered. "Ella, please run." So they ran. The grass whipped their faces, legs burning as they pushed through. The newborn whimpered against Ella's chest but didn't cry, almost as if the child could feel the need for silence. A deep groan rolled across the field behind them. Low. Starved. Calling Reed's name without a voice. He stumbled, hands over his ears. "Ella, don't let it take me, don't let it." She grabbed him by the collar and yanked him forward. "Move." They burst through a line of broken fencing and collapsed behind it, panting. The field lay in front of them like a lake of shifting black. The sound of something pushing through the stalks grew louder. Ella scanned the horizon. There. The silhouette of the abandoned Miller barn rose against the dark sky, slanted, rotted, but standing. Reed followed her gaze. "We'll never make that." "You will," she said. "I'll slow it down if I have to." Reed's face twisted with fear. "You can't fight that thing." "I'm not fighting it." "Then what?" Ella adjusted her grip on the newborn. "I'm buying us seconds." Reed stepped in front of her, shaking but determined. "No. I'm not letting you stay behind for me." "You don't get to choose," she said softly. "He needs you." Reed looked at the baby, then at Ella. A new sound drifted from behind them. Not a moan. Not claws. A breath. Cold. Right at their backs. Reed's eyes widened. "It's here." Ella didn't turn around. Turning around meant seeing whatever stood behind them, and she knew Reed would break if he saw its full shape in the open. She tightened her grip on the newborn, leaned close to Reed's ear, and whispered, "On my word, run." Reed shook his head violently. "I can't leave you." Yes, you can, she said. You already survived worse. The breath behind them deepened, slow, wet, dragging. Something heavy shifted its weight, bending the grass as if the ground itself were leaning away from it. Ella whispered, 3. Reed's hands clenched. 2. A claw scraped the fence post to their left, leaving a sound like bone against wood. 1. Ella shoved Reed forward. Run! Reed bolted, stumbling through the grass toward the looming barn. Ella pivoted, baby against her chest, and caught the faintest outline of the creature, long-limbed, hunched, its outline trembling like heat off metal. Its face didn't exist so much as sag in loose folds, a shape that suggested a man and yet nothing living. Ella backed away, every instinct screaming. Come on then, she whispered. Follow me. The creature tilted its ruined head. A twitch. A sound like a swallowed breath. Then it lunged. Ella spun and sprinted, the tall grass tearing at her legs. Reed kept glancing back, gasping. Ella! Keep going, she shouted. The creature barreled through the stalks, slower than before but unstoppable, pushing the grass aside like water. Ella could hear its wheezing inhale, the rattle of broken ribs, the scrape of claws it shouldn't have had. Reed reached the barn first, slipping inside through the crooked doorway. Hurry, he cried, voice cracking. Ella reached the threshold just as a clawed hand cut through the grass behind her. She dove inside, slamming into the dirt floor. Reed seized the door and pulled with all his strength. The barn door groaned, dragging through earth and debris, scraping shut just as the creature slammed against it. A thunderous crack shook the structure. Dust fell from the rafters. Reed flinched, backing away, baby trembling in his arms. It's gonna break through. No, Ella said, crawling to him. Not yet. Another slam rocked the door. Claws hooked into the wood, splintering it. Through the gaps, Reed saw its pale, pulsing skin and recoiled, choking on a sob. It wants me, he whispered. It's always wanted me. Ella held his shoulders. Reed. Look at me. He did. You're not something it owns. He shook his head, tears streaking his cheeks. You don't understand. My father, he wasn't just cruel. He used to take me out at night. Said the dark had lessons. Said the dark saw everything we did. Sometimes he'd disappear for hours and come back, wrong. Eyes all wrong. Ella swallowed. This thing isn't your father. It followed him, Reed whispered. Or he followed it. I don't know which came first. A long, deliberate scrape dragged down the barn door. Then another. The creature wasn't trying to force its way in anymore. It was tracing them. Memorizing the wood. Learning the door. Ella stood, shifting the baby in her arms. We need higher ground. Reed pointed to the loft ladder. There? Yeah. Reed climbed first, hands shaking, whispering to the baby to stay calm. Ella followed. When they reached the loft, the barn stretched below them, wide beams, open shadows, a hollow space that felt like the inside of a throat. The creature's hand slid through a new crack in the door, feeling the air. Reed froze. Ella. I see it. The creature's fingers curled, sniffing the space without a nose. Then it pressed its head against the wood, listening. Reed's breath shook as he whispered, Why won't it stop? Ella touched his arm. Because it thinks you still belong to it. Reed closed his eyes, pain rippling across his face. The creature moaned again, longer this time. And then it stepped back. Ella leaned forward. What's it doing? Reed's voice trembled. It's calling others. A second moan answered from somewhere in the field. Then a third. Then a fourth, farther away, but moving closer. Reed grabbed Ella's sleeve, terror igniting in his eyes. We're not fighting one, he whispered. We're fighting all of them. Cole didn't move when Mara yelled his name. He just stood there by the broken crib, shoulders shaking, fists clenched, breath short like something inside him had snapped loose. Cole, Mara said again, softer this time. Look at me. He didn't. So she walked toward him slowly, careful not to startle him. Cole whispered, I didn't mean for any of this. I just wanted food. I just wanted a place to sleep. Mara stepped behind him. You're safe here. He stiffened. Nobody is safe anywhere. Aiden fussed in her arms. Mara rocked him gently, but her eyes stayed fixed on the trembling boy. Cole. Tell me what's coming. He shut his eyes like it hurt. What did you hear in town? Mara pushed. Tell me the whole thing. Cole turned slowly, face pale. Sheriff Hale knows about your baby. They're saying he's connected to the governor. They're saying. Mara cut him off. Say it straight. They think Mason took something from the governor, Cole said. They think the baby is proof. Mara felt her blood turn cold. Why would the governor care about my child? Cole looked away. Because, he says Mason betrayed him. Mara's voice dropped. Your brother? Cole nodded. He used to work for him. Years back. Before he turned. Mara stared at him, stunned. Turned? Turned outlaw, Cole whispered. Turned enemy. Turned everything the governor hates. Mara slowly sank into the chair, her knees weak. Mason never told me any of that, she muttered. He wouldn't, Cole said gently. He wanted you clean. Mara's jaw tightened. Clean from what? Cole hesitated, then. From the blood on his name. Silence filled the room. Then Mara said, You shoulda told me. I was scared. Ain't nobody too scared to speak truth. Cole stepped forward suddenly, desperate. Mara, listen, sheriff's men ain't just looking. They're mobilizing. Tonight. They think Mason's hiding here. Mara's breath caught. You tellin' me a posse is comin' to my house? Cole nodded. And Mason's comin', too. Mara blinked hard. They're gonna kill each other right outside my window. Cole whispered, They'll do worse if they get inside. That was the moment something cold, fierce, and old lit behind Mara's eyes. Not fear. Not panic. Resolve. She stood straight. I ain't lettin' any man bust through my walls again. Cole swallowed. Then what do? We face what's ours, she said. We protect this boy. Cole stepped closer, voice low. I'll protect him. I swear. Mara looked at him, then really looked. Not at a hungry stranger. Not at a burden. But at someone who'd been walking through fire alone. You stay behind me, Mara said softly. No, Cole said. I stay with you. A moment passed between them, strong and fragile at the same time. Then the front porch creaked. Both froze. Mara whispered, They're here already. Cole reached for the lantern, blowing it out. Darkness swallowed the room. Outside, boots thudded on wood. A slow, deliberate stomp. Mara's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Cole whispered, Don't move. A voice outside called out. Mara! You awake in there? Mara closed her eyes. Sheriff Hale. Cole grabbed her wrist. Mara, he whispered, Don't open that door. But Hale knocked again, this time harder. Mara! We gotta talk about your boy. Her breath trembled. Cole hissed, Don't let him in. The door handle rattled. Sheriff Hale's voice turned cold. I ain't a skin twice. The door shook under Sheriff Hale's fist. Mara didn't move. Cole didn't breathe. The baby whimpered softly in her arms. Hale slammed again. Mara! I know you're standing right behind that door. Open it. Cole whispered, He'll force his way. Mara whispered back, No, he won't. But she wasn't sure. Hale finally stopped banging. A slow silence dragged across the porch like a knife. Then, soft, controlled, he spoke. I ain't here to hurt nobody. But I got orders. From high up. Cole's eyes widened. The governor, he mouthed silently. Mara squeezed the baby tighter. Hale continued, I know Mason's been seen near your property. I know he's hunting for something that belongs to the governor. Cole tensed so hard Mara felt it through the floorboards. Mara, open this door, Hale said. I'm not your enemy. Mara stepped forward, whispering to Cole, stay behind me. Mara. Do it. She unlocked the door. Cole's breath hitched. Hale filled the doorway like a shadow, tall, hard, eyes sharp. Evenin', he said. Mara stared back coldly. Speak your business. Hale's gaze slid to the infant in her arms. That him? Mara didn't flinch. My child. Hale exhaled, long and heavy. You in trouble, girl. I'm aware. No, Hale said, voice firmer. You don't know the size of it. Cole stepped forward slightly. Hale spotted him immediately. And you, Hale said. You the stray boy she took in. Cole said nothing. Hale sighed. This ain't good. Mara took a half-step in front of Cole. Say what you came to say. Hale rubbed his jaw. Governor ain't thinkin' right. He's obsessed. Says Mason stole something, won't tell us what. Won't rest till he gets it back. And folks in town, they whisper. Whisper what? Mara asked. That your baby ain't just yours. Mara's entire body turned to stone. Hale continued carefully, I ain't sayin' I believe it. But the governor's men do. And they're comin' here by dawn. Cole whispered, no, no, Mason said. Hale snapped, Mason's a liar. No he ain't, Cole hissed. Hale took a slow breath. Boy, you don't know the half of it. Mara interrupted, enough. What do you want from us? Hale lowered his voice. To help you. Mara stiffened. Help? Hale nodded. I don't want bloodshed. I don't want your boy in danger. If you pack tonight and leave through the old ridge trail, you might get far enough. Cole whispered, it's a trap. Hale glared. You're a child. Stay out of this. Cole stepped forward anyway. Sheriff, you don't understand. Mason's comin'. Tonight. Here. To protect Mara and the baby. Hale's eyes darkened. That man don't protect. He destroys. No, Cole said fiercely. He's my brother. Hale paused, just a heartbeat, and something like pity crossed his face. Then I'm sorry for you, he said quietly. Mara whispered, Sheriff. If I stay? He answered without blinking. You'll be caught in a war you can't survive. The baby cried. Mara rocked him shakily. Cole whispered, tell him. Tell him the governor's the one who hurt your brother. Tell him the truth. Hale froze. What truth? Cole swallowed. What they did to Pa. What they did to Mason. You were there. Hale's jaw clenched. Mara, Cole whispered, he knows. Hale looked away, ashamed. Mara whispered, Sheriff, what did you do? Hale shook his head. Not now. Not here. They'll be here any minute. Who? Mara asked. Hale met her eyes. The governor's men. Then. A rifle cracked outside. Cole yanked Mara backward. Hale drew his gun. Someone shouted in the distance. He's here. Mason's here. Sheriff Callum stepped into the church, his boots thudding against the wooden floor like slow warnings. The door swung shut behind him, locking out the cold night but trapping every fear Mara thought she had buried. Asher stiffened beside her, clutching the newborn so tightly it seemed the child could feel his tremble. Callum's shadow stretched across the pews like a long hand reaching for them. Mara pulled Asher behind her, even though the boy wasn't willing to hide anymore. "Everyone out," Callum said. His voice had no rise, no fall. Just command. "Church is closed." The scattered townsfolk looked at each other, unsure. The preacher stepped forward hesitantly. "Sheriff, this is a house of..." "Out," Callum repeated. "All of you." One by one, with heads low, boots soft, they slipped outside until the church was nothing but empty pews, cold air, and the three of them standing in the center aisle. Callum stared at Asher like he was an old debt overdue. Mara placed herself in front, heart pounding. "Give me the boy," Callum said. "You'll kill him," Mara answered, her voice tight but steady. "Not if he cooperates. He's a child. You don't know what he is." Asher stepped out from behind her, the newborn in his arms, held like something breakable and precious. His voice cracked. "I'm not going with you." Callum smirked, the expression dry and cruel. "You don't have a choice." Mara drew a breath that felt like swallowing fire. "He told me everything. About the cellar. About your brotherhood of men. About the bodies." Callum's eyes slid toward her, colder than the night outside. "Careful." "No," she said. "Not anymore." Asher shifted the newborn, trying to keep the tiny head close to his shoulder. His arms shook, but he held firm. "You killed my brother." Callum turned slowly toward him. "Your brother made mistakes. He tried to stop you. He tried to betray the men who fed him. Men who raised him. Men who kept this town safe. You murdered him," Asher whispered. Callum stared at the boy, and something sharp flickered behind his eyes. "You don't know what you saw." "I saw everything," Asher said. "And you saw me." Mara watched the sheriff's fingers twitch. A dangerous movement. A warning. She stepped closer, shielding Asher again even as he held the baby like he'd never let go. "You hurt people," Mara said quietly. "You hide them in that cellar. You make them disappear. You think no one will believe a housekeeper and a runaway boy." Callum's silence said she was right. But then the church door creaked behind him. The townsfolk weren't gone. They hadn't left far. Their faces hovered in the doorway, half curious, half terrified. And they were listening. Callum's jaw tightened. "You're making this worse." "You made it worse the night you put your hands on me," Mara said. Callum froze. A ripple moved through the crowd outside. Asher whispered, "He hurt you?" "Long time ago," Mara said. And nobody stopped him. Those words landed like a stone on the floor. Callum snapped. He lunged, reaching for Asher, fingers twisted in rage. The preacher shouted, moving forward. Mara grabbed Callum's coat and yanked back with all her strength. The sheriff stumbled, hit a pew, and swung toward her. Asher backed up with the newborn, desperate to shield the tiny child from the violence. "Stop," he cried. Deputies burst through the doors, lanterns raised. One shouted, "Sheriff, stand down." Callum ignored them, reaching for Mara again until the preacher threw his weight forward and tackled the sheriff from the side. They crashed into a pew, splintering wood, Callum snarling like something wild. "Hold him," someone yelled. Deputies rushed in, unsure, their loyalty cracking under the weight of the truth they had heard. Two pinned Callum's arms. Another held him by the shoulders. Callum roared, kicking, swearing, spitting. "Let go of me. You're dead, all of you. You hear me, dead." But no one listened. The preacher wiped blood from his lip. "Enough, Callum." The deputies dragged the sheriff down the aisle, his boots scraping the floor that once echoed his authority. He twisted, furious, humiliated, caught in the very place he claimed control over. Asher stood shaking, the newborn against his chest. Mara touched his shoulder. "It's done," she whispered. As Callum was pulled into the night, Asher finally breathed. Callum was dragged out of the church kicking and cursing, his voice bouncing against the wooden walls until the night swallowed him whole. Mara stood frozen in the aisle, her breath shaking, her arms aching from instinctively shielding Asher during the struggle. The newborn cried in soft whimpers against Asher's shoulder, and the boy clung to him like he was the last warm thing in a collapsing world. Mara stepped closer and touched Asher's back. He flinched first, then leaned into her hand with a shudder. "You're safe," she whispered, though her voice trembled with doubt. Asher nodded, but his eyes stayed locked on the doors. Outside, deputies argued about who had authority to hold the sheriff now that half the town had witnessed the confrontation. Mara stayed where she was, afraid that moving would break the thin shell of safety forming around them. Asher sat slowly on a pew, the newborn still tight in his arms, rocking him in small, uneven motions. Mara knelt beside him. "You did good," she said. "You stood up." Asher shook his head. "I was scared." "Everybody's scared," she said. "But you didn't run." Asher blinked fast, fighting tears. "He killed my brother. I thought he was coming to finish me." "He won't touch you again." "How do you know?" "Because people saw," Mara answered. "And people talk." More townsfolk drifted back inside, drawn by fear, curiosity, or maybe the strange pull of seeing power finally bend. The preacher approached quietly, wiping dust from his coat. "Mara," he said softly, "they're taking Callum into holding. Committee will decide what happens by morning." Mara nodded but didn't rise. She stayed beside Asher, watching his breathing hitch and settle as the newborn calmed against him. The preacher's gaze softened. "The boy needs rest," he said. "So do you." "We're not leaving yet," Mara replied. "They'll have questions." "They will," the preacher admitted. "But not tonight." Asher looked up, voice raw. "Are they going to ask about the cellar?" The preacher swallowed. "They'll ask about everything." Asher pressed his cheek to the baby's head. "I don't want to go back there. Ever." "You won't," Mara said. "Not while I'm breathing." The committee arrived sooner than anyone expected, their coats still damp from the cold and their faces drawn tight with responsibility they had avoided for years. They asked Mara to come forward, but she shook her head and pointed at Asher. "He talks, I stay with him," she said, and they didn't argue. One of the elders crouched down, trying to look gentle. "Son," he said, "we need to understand what happened." Asher's voice nearly failed him. "He kept people down there," he whispered. "My brother tried to stop him." The elder nodded slowly. "And you saw it?" "I saw everything," Asher answered. "I saw him hurt them. I saw him hurt my brother." Mara wrapped an arm around him. The committee exchanged heavy looks, each man and woman realizing the weight of what the sheriff had been hiding. Finally, the eldest spoke. "The boy stays protected," he said. "No matter what comes next." Mara exhaled, relief loosening her shoulders for the first time that night. Asher leaned into her, trembling but unbroken. The church felt quieter than ever before tonight. The storm had passed hours ago, but the ranch still smelled of wet cedar and unsettled earth. Dawn crept in slow, a pale ribbon of silver stretching across the valley. From the window of the bunkhouse, Elena watched the mist gather along the fence line, soft at first, then thick enough to swallow the posts one by one. She hadn't slept. Not after what she'd seen. Not after what she thought she heard behind the barn. Every time she closed her eyes, that shadow returned, the tall, crooked silhouette standing just at the edge of the lantern glow, unmoving, as if studying her. It could have been a trick of the dark. Or a man waiting for his moment. She still didn't know which. Inside the bunkhouse, the quiet was too heavy. Even the horses sensed it, she could hear them shifting restlessly in their stalls, hooves tapping the boards in uneven rhythm. The ranch usually woke with life, men heading to the corrals, the cook calling out breakfast, somebody laughing at something that wasn't even funny. But this morning pressed like a held breath. Every sound felt guilty, like it belonged to someone else. Elena set her hands against the window frame to steady herself. Their footprints. Not the ranch hands. Too wide. Too deep. A stranger's gate. She swallowed, heat rising under her skin. He came close. Too close. Behind her, the door creaked. "Did you sleep?" a quiet voice asked. She didn't turn. "No." The cowboy stepped inside, boots dusty from a night spent riding patrol. His hat dripped rainwater down the brim. His eyes, though stayed sharp, awake in a way that made Elena feel like he hadn't slept either. "We followed the tracks." He paused, letting the words settle. Whoever he was, he stood there a long while. "I know." She exhaled shakily. "I felt it." His jaw tightened, barely noticeable, but real. "We think he circled the barn. Didn't break in. Didn't try the doors. Just watched." A cold knot twisted at her ribs. "He'll be back." "Maybe," he admitted. "But he made a mistake." "What mistake?" The cowboy stepped closer, lowering his voice. "He assumed we'd be slow to notice." Elena finally looked at him, and the faintest gleam of steel flickered in his eyes, controlled, contained, but very real. A warning meant for someone who wasn't in the room. A knock came from outside, the foreman. "Tracks lead toward the ridge. Might be headed for the old mining road." The cowboy gave a curt nod. "Saddle up. I'll be right out." When the door shut again, only silence remained. Elena brushed dust off the window glass with her fingertips. "You think he's connected to the letters?" "I think men who watch houses at night don't come with good intentions." "What do we do?" He hesitated, then reached out and gently pulled the curtain closed. "We make it harder for him to get what he wants." Elena's breath hitched. "And what does he want?" "You," the cowboy said softly. A truth spoken without drama, without hesitation, just steady, grim certainty. Her pulse stumbled. The cowboy shifted, rough voice softer now. "You aren't alone here. Not anymore." As he turned to leave, Elena realized her hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the strange, fragile safety she felt when he stood near her. The world outside the window might hold shadows, tracks, men who hide their faces. But in this room, he was a fixed point. Solid. Unmoving. And that scared her even more. Because safety, she'd learned, could be taken just as quickly as it was given.